Tonight, counting down to a coronation, the rarely shared insights of the King's sister.
I don't think he'll change. You know, he is committed to his own level of service, and that will remain true.
On Charles as king, the monarchy's relevance, and her own changing role. My Canadian exclusive with Anne, the Princess Royal. Done deal. Public servants back on the job.
We compromised and we found creative solutions.
Dangerous floodwaters in Quebec. Now a desperate search.
This is The National.
Good evening, I'm Asha Tomlinson. We'll go to Adrienne in London in a few moments and her exclusive interview with Princess Anne. But we need to start tonight with breaking news that will matter deeply to millions of Canadians. A giant of the Canadian music world, in many respects, the giant, has died. Singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot's legendary career spanned 7 decades, with hundreds of songs that stitched themselves into the fabric of our nation. Lightfoot's death at age 84 will reverberate globally among music fans and fellow musicians alike. Here's Deanna Sumanac-Johnson on his life, his career, and his lasting impact.
Remember me, I'm the one who loved you.
By his early 20s, Gordon Lightfoot was already a mainstay on CBC's variety shows.
Let's have a real big hand for Gordy Lightfoot.
In the 1960s, as folk movement gained popularity, so did his songs.
Hear the mighty engines roll.
That song, Early Morning Rain, would also eventually be sung by Elvis Presley. Just one of many American stars who admired the man who stayed in Canada even as his international fame grew.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa down.
In 1975, he wrote what he considered his finest song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, inspired by the previous year's sinking of a Great Lakes freighter that took down the lives of 29 of its crew members.
With the load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty.
When you get the bug of songwriting, it stays with you all the time. You never quite forget about it.
At the 1986 Junos, another famous admirer, Bob Dylan, inducted him into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame.
All right, here he is now, Gordon Lightfoot.
But more than any accolades, what Lightfoot wanted was to continue recording and touring, even after the 2002 abdominal hemorrhage that almost took his life. The road to recovery was long and tough, but Lightfoot's love of the stage kept him going.
Sometimes I think it's a shame to get feeling better when I'm feeling no pain.
You know, I want to be like, like Wilf Carter and Stompin' Tom and Willie Nelson, and just do it just for as long as is humanly possible.
He actually continued performing well into his 80s, even through other health scares,
Our rendezvous.
and staying Canada's troubadour till the very end,
A key was kept inside a shoe.
capturing life stories, big and small, in timeless melodies. Deanna Sumanac-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Morning glories on my mind.
Lightfoot's life and music were indelible, and tonight, generations of Canadians will share their memories. But what did the artist himself have to say along the way? Here's Gordon Lightfoot in his own words.
When I woke this morning, something inside of me told me this would be my day.
Never was a strong guitar player. Fortunately, I have a lot of strong people around me to help carry the load. But I worked real hard and I wrote a lot of songs, and I learned a lot of songs is what I did. I started playing 12-string and I learned a whole bunch of songs, and I got to the point where I could sing in bars and lounges.
Lamp is burning low upon my tabletop. Now the snow is softly falling. The air is still in the silence of my room. I hear your voice softly calling.
Songwriting is an extremely difficult gig. It takes a specific talent to do it. And I've written now just over 400 songs. And it's hard on your mind, and it takes a toll on your nerves. And you're obsessed with it. And you're driven to it. And you're always just shooting for that ultimate quality of that perfect piece of material, that perfect poem. That's what keeps you going.
Smoke rings rising till they disappear. In the sky above. If you ask me, I'll take along.
I love the work. It's fun. It's really fun to do. To get out, be able to perform and feel that communication, because you know that you're putting out as much as you can, and there's no doubt about that.
I'm basically a shy sort of individual. Like I have a shy streak. I just go out there, do the job to the best of my ability, and carry on. Whatever will be said later will be said, be it good or be it bad, or both.
Lightfoot's death will be felt from coast to coast to coast. CBC News will have much more on his life, his art, and his legacy in the days ahead. Gordon Lightfoot, dead at 84. Turning to other news now, starting in Quebec, where a desperate search is on. Police say 2 firefighters were swept away by floodwaters northeast of Quebec City. The flooding has also damaged property and left about 1,000 residents cut off and huddled in their homes. Alison Northcott has more.
The power of the swollen river in Bay St. Paul took many by surprise. The water strong enough to carry away and destroy full campers from a nearby campground. A lot of rain fell fast, washing away roads, stranding about 1,000 residents. As the situation worsened minute by minute, the municipality of Bay St. Paul declared an emergency. The mayor confirmed 2 people are missing. Police say they're firefighters who were helping flooded residents when they were carried away by the water. Canadian Armed Forces and Quebec Provincial Police are helping in the search.
I've seen pieces of houses floating by, refrigerators, trees. Can't get into town.
As he walks along the rushing river, Everest Prokofiev can only hope the damage to his waterside art gallery is limited.
Unfortunately, the water had breached the barriers of the shore and started flooding the back of the gallery, but I can't get back in. The roads are closed.
Heavy rains also hit other parts of the province. In St. Côme, a dozen roadways impassable, forcing evacuations as water surrounded homes. The river in the back overflowed, says Pierrette Tremblay, then came out over here and over here. Volunteers sandbagged to protect homes. The water won't stop rising, he says. No one can get through on this street. Officials are urging residents to be careful, to stay home if it's safe, as they monitor roadways and water levels. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Tonight, a coroner's inquest has determined that the death of Myles Gray after an encounter with 7 Vancouver police officers was a homicide. In 2015, police responded to calls about an agitated man. They restrained Gray, causing injuries, and during his arrest in Burnaby, BC, his heart stopped. The inquest, which does not determine legal responsibility, recommends that police employ more body cameras. One of the largest strikes in Canadian history appears to be over, with a tentative deal between the government and the Public Sector Alliance of Canada. But not all strikers are going back to work. Kate McKenna explains.
Both sides call it a victory.
We asked our members to go on strike so that we can achieve something better at the bargaining table. The members answered that call.
This wasn't easy. We negotiated, we compromised, and we found creative solutions.
The tentative deal reached after midnight at this hotel.
Last night, as I said, when the teams had that discussion about, okay, is there anything else there that we think we can achieve? So that was a very difficult discussion.
The numbers are a bit different depending on which side you ask. The government says the deal includes wage increases of 11.5% over 4 years, though the union says a provision in the third year of the contract means the increase actually adds up to 12%. Each worker also gets a one-time payment of $2,500.
This agreement is less than half of the cost of the PSAC's original demands, and its ongoing cost is estimated at $1.3 billion a year.
There was less movement on another key issue, working from home. The government has vowed to review its rules and approve requests on a case-by-case basis, but it won't be a right in the collective agreement.
They have committed to continue talking about what the deal could become, how it could evolve. And I think that is all for the good, because this isn't the sort of thing you can negotiate with a knife at your throat.
But for some 35,000 Canada Revenue Agency workers represented by a different bargaining group, strike action continues as they look for wage increases of more than 20% over 3 years.
I just hope that by this week it'll be over. I hope, but we're not giving up.
It's the tax deadline, and because of that CRA strike, Canadians can expect delays processing their taxes, particularly if they file by mail. All other government workers should be back in their jobs, and services should start to go back to normal. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Alberta's provincial election campaign is officially underway.
We are offering a government that is going to make sure that we are relentlessly focused on creating jobs, attracting investment, and making sure life is more affordable for their families.
Daniel Smith's United Conservative Party is seeking re-election. Polls suggest it's a neck-and-neck race with Rachel Notley's New Democrats.
And I'm asking Albertans, I'm asking them to choose a better future for this great province that we all love.
Albertans will go to the polls on May 29th. Today, the Prime Minister was grilled over reports that his government failed to act on a 2021 CSIS warning that China was targeting the family of a Canadian MP critical of its human rights record.
His government has known that a Canadian MP had his family threatened because that MP voted for human rights in the House of Commons. He knew about that for 2 years. He did exactly nothing.
Michael Chong says his family in Hong Kong was targeted back in 2021, but that he was never informed. The Prime Minister called the situation unacceptable and promised an investigation. Turning now to Ukraine, where 2 Canadians have died in Bakhmut. They were fighting alongside Ukrainian soldiers trying to hold on to that battered city. Chris Brown on who they were and what one of them told Chris just last year.
Bakhmut is a hellhole, the bloodiest and longest battle of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and 2 young Canadian men are among its latest victims. Cole Zelenko of St. Catharines on the left was just 21, and 27-year-old Kyle Porter of Calgary. The 2 served in Ukraine's International Legion and became friends. They were with Ukrainian troops defending a crucial supply route when they were hit by Russian artillery fire Wednesday and killed. They are the 4th and 5th Canadians to die in combat since Russia's invasion. Our CBC News team met Kyle Porter in Kharkiv last spring. He was volunteering with an urban search and rescue team, pulling victims out of the rubble after Russian rocket attacks.
Sounds like this has been a pretty significant experience for you, perhaps even traumatic?
Worse cruelty.
Still, even then, he sounded like there was more for him to do.
I'm hoping to come back at some point in a different role. We'll see.
Porter was texting with CBC News 3 days before his death. He had been to Bakhmut before and was anxious. "Let me figure out how I'm going to survive the next few days," he wrote. "It was a meat grinder the first time. I'm not expecting it any better this time around."
They have made the ultimate sacrifice.
Calgarian Paul Hughes, who runs a charity in Kharkiv, is helping with efforts to bring Porter's body back from the battlefield.
They served and represented Canada in the most respectful fashion. Apparently, they were the most trustworthy members of their unit.
In a statement on a GoFundMe page, Cole Zelenko's family said he died a hero through his kindness, sense of humor, and loyalty. Kyle Porter's friends and family said he had saved the lives of many wounded soldiers, and his commanders had recommended him for a medal to recognize his gallantry. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
More violence tonight in Sudan, where there are warnings from the UN of a full-blown humanitarian catastrophe. Thousands have fled the country. The UN expects more than 800,000 others will try and do the same. David Common now with the Canadian diplomat who just got himself out.
Canada's ambassador to Sudan has been in war zones before. Now, he's escaped the latest. Having coordinated the final evacuation flights from Khartoum, Philip Lupel just arrived in Nairobi to meet his boss, Canada's Foreign Minister Melanie Joly.
I'm happy that he's safe and sound.
Tonight, Lupel sat down exclusively with CBC News to talk about the day everything went wrong.
About 9:30 in the morning, a rather large volume and intense gun battle broke out very nearby.
It was a weekend. He was playing tennis right next to the Army headquarters as it came under attack by the paramilitary force now fighting for control of the country. Everyone was seemingly caught off guard.
Both Canadians and the local staff have many stories to relate of bullets piercing their homes, of shrapnel falling in their yards, of shells exploding nearby.
Were you ever afraid that you would die?
There were moments when I certainly had some concern.
Lupel and the Canadian diplomats extracted by American forces in a classified mission by helicopter.
You spent time as a diplomat in Afghanistan. How does this compare?
There's really no comparison in the sense that I felt more afraid in Khartoum during those 8 days of siege than I ever did in Kabul or Kandahar.
Canada's efforts to get remaining citizens out of Sudan are now being coordinated here, out of Nairobi and the High Commission, where officials have now gathered in an effort to find alternative routes out.
That may include an overland journey to the Red Sea, then out by ship for the remaining 200-plus Canadians who want out. But for now, it may be safest to just hide. David Common, CBC News, Nairobi.
May Day, the traditional day of union-led marches, turned violent across France today. In the capital, police fired tear gas and water cannon at the crowds. The demonstrators, in turn, threw projectiles and torched bicycles. France has been on edge since last month when President Macron signed a law raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. We're going to take you back to Adrienne now in London with more of our coverage leading up to the coronation.
Hey there, Asha. As we get closer to the coronation of Charles III, there are questions for a royal about the future of the royal family.
What kind of king do you think he'll be?
Well, you know what you're getting because he's been practicing for a bit.
Princess Anne looking ahead to the coronation of her brother and reflecting on the huge loss of their mother.
It was really touching in the way that people responded.
The Canadian exclusive interview coming up next. And a little later, not everyone in the UK is feeling positive about the coronation.
It is nothing more than rub salt into the wound to remind us every day that we are subjects.
Mixed feelings in Wales. We're back at 2.
This is St. James's Palace in London. And more than just look at it, let's go inside. This is the private sitting room for the Princess Royal Princess Anne. She has opened up the room and opened up her schedule to do something she rarely does, conduct an interview with us about things she doesn't often talk about. Losing both her parents within the span of 18 months, the upcoming coronation, the future of the monarchy, and Canada. This is our conversation with Princess Anne. So I thank you very much for making time for us. I know you don't have much of it at all.
Only when I'm in London, I tend to sort of pack it in when I'm in London.
There's a reason Princess Anne is referred to as the hardest working royal. In addition to being involved with more than 300 charities, she carries out more events than any other royal, and carries with her that sense of responsibility passed on from her mother, the Queen.
On August the 15th, 1950, a daughter was born. The little princess was christened Anne Elizabeth Alice Louise.
The second child and only daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. She had her first royal engagement at the age of 18 and started working with Save the Children shortly after. She still works with them.
Princess Anne this afternoon at the equestrian events.
She's an Olympian, competed in Montreal in 1976. She's a mother of 2, and she spent her whole life under the watchful eyes of the world's cameras. Most recently, in September, when the Queen died, 72-year-old Princess Anne with her mother until the very end. For a woman so often seen, she doesn't do many interviews. Still, she sat down with us ahead of the coronation for an exclusive Canadian conversation.
We are so close to this moment. Here we are again with history, with coronation. Forgive me if this is a naive question, but how on earth do you prepare for that?
Good question. We've been very lucky. My mother was the Queen for a very long time. And although you kind of know that this might happen, you don't really think about it very much. Not least of all because the monarchy is about continuity. But I think for my brother, this is something he's been waiting for. And he's probably spent more time thinking about it. For the rest of us, it's more a question of, okay, we have to shift the way we support. And that's what we need to do.
And what does that shift look like for you?
Well, that's we don't know yet. I mean, there was an order to the years because my mother didn't change very much. We kind of knew what the rhythm of the year was. Mm-hmm. So things like that will change, and how we are part of the support for the monarchy may change slightly. Who knows?
And when you hear sometimes people refer to a slimmed-down monarchy, I can't imagine what that might mean for a role like yours. I don't know how many more hours in the day you have to take more things on.
Well, I think the slim down was said in a day when there were a few more people around to make that seem like a justifiable comment.
The world changes a bit.
It changes a bit. I mean, it doesn't sound like a good idea from where I'm standing, I have to say.
I'm sure it does
I'm not quite sure what else we can do.
A few more royals were indeed on the job not that long ago. Take Prince Andrew, Prince Harry and Meghan off the roster, in addition to the loss of the Queen and Prince Philip, and what you'll end up seeing at the coronation is a decidedly smaller contingent.
Is there something we should be looking for those of us watching on during the coronation? Some of the details are yet to be released. But is there a moment we should...
I'm waiting to be told. I haven't asked too many questions.
Smart.
In the terms of my role, I have a role as Colonel of the Blues and Rolls in the Household Cavalry Regiment, as Goldstick. And Goldstick was the original close protection officer. So that is a role that I was asked if I'd like to do for this coronation. So I said yes. Not least of all, it solves my dress problem.
It certainly does. Also, that's an interesting metaphor in a way, a close protection officer, that role for the king, for your brother, in terms of carrying forward some of the continuity of what you have seen to stand with him.
Oh, well, it'll be different I mean, the whole service will be different in many respects. Mm-hmm. He was just old enough to have gone to my mother's coronation. I don't know what his impressions were. I was not allowed to go, probably quite rightly, at that stage in my career. It could have been way more trouble than it was worth.
On this second day of June, in the year 1953, Elizabeth is led here to be anointed Elizabeth II.
It'll be such a different scenario. And when you look at the Abbey now, when you go to events, and you think, how did they get that number of people in there? And there won't be that many in there this time. There is so much in that service which you really have to do. I mean, that is fundamentally important. It is the meaning of the coronation in every way. It's not just a big ceremony. It is a very essential part of the responsibilities of the crown.
God crown you with a crown of glory and righteousness.
I realize you weren't there. We've seen the pictures of that tiny curly blonde head over the balcony. I don't know if your memories are formed from seeing images or if you actually have...
It is a problem. You don't quite know whether you're remembering actual memories or whether they're so prompted by photographs that that's what you think you remember.
Right.
So no, I don't have many memories, apart from sort of the group of youngsters who were left behind. I suspect there was an argument about who got the rocking horse, but that's...
I wonder who won that one.
Key moment in the day.
We wouldn't be having this conversation had you not that long ago, it's still very fresh, lost your mother, the Queen. This is something everyone in the world can understand, the private loss here. I think it doesn't matter how old you are when you lose a parent, you're still a child in that moment.
Well, the relationship tends to remain, if you're lucky, remains very similar throughout your life, doesn't it?
Yes. We have an impression from what we saw because of all the cameras. The cameras were often so fixed on you, as you made that journey behind the vehicle. Is it a blur? Is it acute? Were you able to take any of it in?
No, I think we took a lot of it in, partly because we knew the route. And I did actually spot people I knew on the way. It was such an impressive sight. And it was more than that because it was really touching in the way that people responded and how they did things. And, you know, the people brought their ponies and horses out, but they not only brought them out, they'd plaited them, they were properly dressed, they were well turned out. They brought their tractors out and they parked them, you know, tidily, they're all clean. And if you come from a rural background, I was really impressed. You know, it was just an astonishing sight. But the sheer numbers of people who turned up in quite extraordinary places. You were never going to miss that and the atmosphere that it created. Leaving Balmoral was never easy, but then it never has been. And that was just as bad when I was leaving as a child.
Why?
Well, because I didn't like leaving.
You were happy there?
Yeah.
And your mother, the Queen, was obviously very happy there.
It's very much a place which I think always fitted in that time of the year. There was a real relaxation.
Relaxation, rarely a concept associated with the late Queen or the 72-year-old Princess Anne. For a few years running, she's officially been declared the hardest working royal. 214 appearances last year alone.
It's been fascinating from our perspective to get a glimpse into your schedule, trying to navigate a place for this. And it genuinely seems programmed sometimes to the minute. And is that by design? Is that duty? Is that desire?
Oh, it's a mixture. I think it's certainly by design, because it's really the only way to organise your life.
So COVID must have been a terrible block for that kind of work.
A block, certainly from everybody's perspective. But it was intriguing to note how people, there was the word they kept using here, pivoted. So they pivoted using either the strengths of what they did before to deliver it slightly differently.
We sometimes at home talk about COVID as a thief, in that it stole from a lot of people. Did it steal from you?
In some respects. I suppose I tend to think it stole a bit from my father, who, you know, lost a lot of the people who would have gone to see him and talk to him and, you know, have those conversations that kept him interested, and he lost all of that. I'm sure there are lots of families who will tell you the same thing, that for the older generation, losing those contacts, the ability to you know, online didn't do it for everybody.
I mean, I'm sorry to bring it up, but I think of that image of your mother, the Queen, by herself.
Yes, at
in
the
that
funeral.
moment.
Yeah.
That was a thievery.
Yeah, you're quite right. And then, in some ways, I'm glad we didn't see that at that moment. And then when you see the photograph, it's much worse somehow. And you saw more of that than we did, accompanying the coffin.
It was the COVID restrictions that imposed that solitary grief on the Queen in April of 2021 at the funeral of her husband of 7 decades, Prince Philip. His death seemed to begin a chain of momentous royal events, all within 18 months. Some wrenching lows for the family, but also a moment unlike any other in British history, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
The feeling was extraordinary. It was loud, it was raucous. But in the crowd, you kept hearing people saying, "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you."
Yes.
And I wondered then, did your mother, the Queen, know that they were saying thank you? Did she feel that gratitude?
I suspect she would have noticed.
Did she have fun with the Platinum Jubilee?
Fun, yes. I think it's quite a long weekend for that.
Yes.
To be down as fun. But I think when she came at the end, I think that she realised that everybody had appreciated it. That really made a difference.
But that, as it were, was then. This almost seems like another era. It's a moment when feelings about the monarchy are hardening, and don't think the members of the royal family don't notice. When we come back.
You don't sound worried about the health or the longevity of the monarchy.
I think you're putting words into my mouth, as they say.
In the fairy tale story of kings and princesses, there are facts, hard ones, including the reality that the global relationship with the British royal family is frankly shifting.
There are countries all over this planet that want to sever their ties with the British royal family. They do not want the monarch as head of state. This is not something the royal family is oblivious to.
There is a growing movement in the UK and Canada protesting the place of the British monarchy. Polls in both countries suggest young people in particular are cooling. 60% of Canadians, regardless of their age, suggesting they don't support Charles as king.
Because we're in this moment of transition, I think it's not unnatural that people are having conversations about the monarchy and the place of the monarchy in various countries, Canada included. And some of the recent polling is suggesting that there is a drop in the percentage of people who would like to see the monarchy continue. How do you deal with that as a family?
Well, we don't, in many respects, need to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Not least of all because it is the monarch that is the key to this, and the constitution that underpins the monarchy. We as a family see ourselves there as to support that role. What we do, we hope, contributes to the monarchy and the way in which it can convey continuity of not just interest but of service, of understanding, the way that people and communities want to live their lives. And I think so often we get the chance to see communities and the people who do things really well and are very generous with their time in a way that, if you look at the media, you tend not to get that impression.
Are there conversations about relevance?
There will be everywhere. It's not a conversation that I would necessarily have. I think it's perfectly true that it is a moment when you need to have that discussion. But I would just underline that the monarchy provides, with the Constitution, a degree of long-term stability that is actually quite hard to come by any other way.
And when we think about this this duty, this role that the king has taken on, what kind of king do you think he'll be?
Well, you know what you're getting because he's been practicing for a bit. And I don't think he'll change. You know, he is committed to his own level of service. That will remain true.
His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales.
Tangibly, though, what will he do? What steps will be taken?
I want to acknowledge that the roots of our contemporary association run deep into the most painful period of our history. I cannot describe the depths of my personal sorrow at the suffering of so many, as I continue to deepen my own understanding of slavery's enduring impact.
There are some indications he is conscious of the wrongs in ways the royal family haven't seemed to express before. The king making a move after weeks of searing coverage in the UK about the monarchy's ties to slavery. Hardly a new subject, but the response from the palace was new.
Buckingham Palace says it's cooperating with an independent study into the links between the British monarchy and the slave trade in the 17th and 18th centuries.
He did something interesting not long ago, offering tacit support to the research into the ties of slavery to the monarchy. He said, absolutely, have a look.
Well, you know more than I do, because I rather suspect that was the media's interpretation of that particular deal.
What's your sense of it?
Who knows who came up with that idea?
Is there a different sense?
It's not really a subject of conversation that I would even go down. A historical perspective, which is slightly different, maybe more realistic.
And which is?
No, the historical perspective, it just goes back a lot further.
Mm-hmm.
And the modern contexts are very different. Slavery hasn't gone away. Mm-hmm. No, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be too focused on time scales and periods. History isn't like that.
Recognizing the British monarchy's place in colonization, in slavery, will be one thing for the institution. Acting on it, finding a new path forward, this would take generations of work. Is change, is reconciliation coming? Is the coronation genuinely the start of a different relationship?
You don't sound worried about the health or the longevity of the monarchy.
I think you're putting words into my mouth, as they say.
Are you then?
Why?
Would you say that you are, you aren't, though?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, because I believe that there is a genuine benefit from this particular arrangement, the constitutional monarchy, and I think it has good long-term benefits. And that commitment to long-term is what the monarchy stands for.
Your Highness, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, well,
genuinely appreciate it.
Princess Anne had more to say about the monarchy, its role, its place. She had more to say about Canada. We talked about the 20-plus trips she has made to the country, the one she is about to make, and her accident in 1976 when she was competing at the Montreal Olympics. You'll be able to see that and the whole interview on the National's YouTube channel. More than half a century ago, Charles was presented to the world as the Prince of Wales, and for some, that title has always stung a little.
They don't deserve the title of Prince of Wales because there's no connection with Wales at all.
Reaction to the coronation in Wales. That's coming up next. Welcome back to London. It may take a little while for the world to get used to King Charles. As heir, he was known as the Prince of Wales for more than 50 years. That's long enough that many likely don't think much about what that title actually means. But Abby Kuthausen shows us that in Wales, many do think about it, especially right now.
The Prince of Wales escort, welcome.
For much of his life, he's been the Prince of Wales. And it was here in the Welsh town of Carnarvon in 1969 where the Queen held a lavish ceremony to present her firstborn son at a castle built by a triumphant English king.
When Wales was conquered by England in the 13th century, Edward I decides to build this huge castle here as a kind of symbol of conquest. It's where his son, Edward of Carnarvon, was born, who became the first English Prince of Wales.
Charles was the 21st.
I, Charles, Prince of Wales, do become your liege man of life and limb.
More than 500 million people watched on television from around the world.
The ceremony has also marked the effective entry into public life of the young man destined to become King Charles III.
Maria Sarnatsky was in the crowd, camera in hand.
It was absolutely something out of a film, a fairy tale.
Today, she feels differently.
To me, they don't deserve the title of Prince of Wales because there's no connection with Wales at all.
To some in Wales, the title is an insult that burns.
The very idea of calling somebody Your Highness is like saying, I'm lower than you.
While others argue it puts Wales on the map.
It's a real honour and privilege for us to have that title known at a global level.
Kensington Palace says Prince William has no plans to have an investiture like his father did, but a poll released shortly before the Queen's death showed 1/5 of people in Wales weren't sure about the future of the title, while 31% don't want a Prince of Wales at all.
But this title just needs to be swept away.
Elfyd Wyn ap Elwyn grew up here.
Dwi'n meddwl fyswn dod â llawer iawn o parch iddyn ni yng Nghymru.
Proudly speaking Welsh, knowing it was forbidden for generations. He became a county councillor here last year and helped pass a motion to do away with the Prince of Wales title altogether.
It does nothing more than rub salt into the wound to remind us every day that we are subjects.
He says monarchy has no place in a democracy and feels his generation is the one to finally dismantle it. Abby Coabasin, CBC News, Carnarvon, Wales.
There's a lot more to come on the National from London as the coronation approaches. Tomorrow, for example, we'll be speaking with the RCMP about the special role it will play. But for now, we'll say goodnight from London and take you back to Asha Tomlinson in Toronto.
Thanks, Adrienne. Returning now to our top story, just breaking tonight. Canada's legendary singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot has died. Lightfoot rose to fame in Toronto's 1960s music scene. His ballads, Early Morning Rain and The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald are Canadian classics. He died this evening in a Toronto hospital. Gordon Lightfoot was 84 years old. Now, take a look at this couple. You're looking at George Faulkner, Newfoundland's first professional hockey player, and his wife, Barbara Paddock, who got married last week. The pair, both in their 80s, found love when they literally bumped into each other just a few months ago. Their ageless love is our moment.
They try to tell us we're too old.
When we got to the blind corner up here, and he was coming out, wasn't looking, I don't think he was either. And I just fell. He said, let me give you a hug. And I was dying for a hug. And I would have hugged a bear, I think, if it had to come around the corner. When he gave me that hug, I mean, that was it. I was gone.
After being with her for a few days and then getting to know a little bit about her, I said, I'm going to propose to her. So I got down on one knee.
And I said, George, what are you doing down there? I told you not to do that. And he was down there, couldn't get off.
And then... It doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you got your faculties and you love each other. That's all that matters.
We were not too old at all.
Good job.
They're just giddy with each other, right? In the day of online connections, it's good and nice to see love flourishes by chance. An inspirational love story for the ages. That is the National for May 1st. I'm Asha Tomlinson. Have a good night.